In a year, artificial intelligence will consume as much electricity as Japan. Right now, a fight is happening, not online. Microsoft is buying nuclear power. Amazon is building reactors. Meta is building AI superclusters. And it's happening beneath your feet. For 3 years, they told you intelligence was weightless, that it lived in the cloud, that it cost nothing. The story they sold you was incomplete because code needs servers. Servers need cooling, and cooling needs power the world doesn't have. Somewhere tonight, a child won't notice the lights dim until the room goes dark. So a machine can keep thinking, and almost no one is talking about it. This is not a story about technology. This is the largest, quietest war for power in modern history, and tonight it's already begun. This is the paradigm effect. This isn't about artificial intelligence, it's about who controls the electricity. And today, we look beneath the code. Here's what's happening beneath all the headlines. While the world argues over which AI is smartest, the smartest money on earth has already moved on, quietly, into the most unglamorous sector imaginable. Let's follow where the power goes. They built the intelligence, now they are coming for the electricity. This is not a story about algorithms. It is a story about who controls the physical world that powers them. While the world watched the software, the smartest money on earth was already moving into power plants, into cooling infrastructure, into the electrical grid itself. In the Northern Virginia, a 40 square mile corridor processing 70% of the world's internet traffic, local power authorities have already declared a formal infrastructure crisis. The grid is so severely strained that utility companies have been forced to restart mothballed coal plants, pushing climate targets back by an estimated decade simply to prevent rolling blackouts. The clean, automated future that artificial intelligence promised us is currently being kept alive by 19th century fossil fuels. This is not a technology story. This is the largest, quietest industrial resource grab in modern history, and it has already begun. Here is what the mathematics actually looks like. A standard Google search, the kind you perform dozens of times a day, consumes 0.3 watt-hours of electricity. A single advanced AI query, generating an image, processing a document, synthesizing a complex response, consumes 2.9 watt-hours, nearly 10 times more per operation. Now multiply that 300 million AI queries processed daily across the major platforms. Every single day, the combined daily load approaches 900 gigawatt-hours, the equivalent electricity demand of 87 million homes in a single day. Now look at where that trajectory leads over the next 18 months. The International Energy Agency projects global data center electricity consumption will surpass 1000 terawatt-hours by 2026, double the baseline from just 4 years ago. And these projections were made by the AI acceleration of late 2023, was fully incorporated into the models. Goldman Sachs research projects a 160% surge in data center power demand before the end of this decade. Not 15%, not 50, 160. Every new generation of AI model requires approximately 10 times more computing power than its predecessor. This is not a projection. It is the documented trajectory of every major AI system released in the past 5 years. There is no software solution to a hardware energy problem. Renewable energy, solar and wind, cannot provide the constant, unwavering baseload power that AI demands around the clock. The gap between what the grid can deliver and what AI now requires is widening every quarter, and only one energy source in the world can close it. The obvious answer was renewable energy. Wind turbines are magnificent until the wind stops. Solar arrays generate billions of watts. After sunset, they generate nothing. The industry has a name for this: intermittency. A renewable source generates power when nature cooperates. A next generation AI cluster runs on its own schedule permanently at full output regardless of weather or time of a day. A next generation AI cluster operates at absolute full capacity every hour, every day, without exception. This is not a peak demand figure. It is the baseline, the permanent floor. Regardless of weather, regardless of season, the measure is capacity factor, the percentage of time a power source delivers electricity at its rated output. Solar 24%, wind 38%, nuclear 93. There is exactly one carbon-free energy source on this planet capable of running an AI supercluster at full capacity, around the clock, without interruption. The same output at midnight in January that it delivers at noon in July. Nuclear 93% capacity factor, air-round, weather-independent, carbon-free at the point of generation. But the plants these companies are racing to acquire are not the cooling tower giants of the last century. A new generation has emerged: small modular reactors, factory manufactured, transportable, deployable in a fraction of the time and cost, purpose-built for the AI age, compact enough to site adjacent to a data campus, scalable enough to be deployed in clusters. And unlike solar or wind, they generate the exact same output on a windless, moonless Tuesday at midnight as they do on any other day. Every generation of AI model demands roughly 10 times the computing power of its predecessor. This is not a projection, it is a documented trajectory, and the grid was never designed for it. From the reactor, the power travels through buried conduits beneath streets across the grid into the server halls running the models that will define the next decade of human civilization. And the moment world's most powerful companies understood this, they all moved toward the same source simultaneously. In September 2023, Microsoft signed a contract that redrew the map of American energy, a 20-year agreement with Constellation Energy to completely restart 3 Mile Island, the site of America's worst nuclear disaster, and route every watt of electricity it generates exclusively to Microsoft Azure AI data network. Amazon moved almost simultaneously through Talon Energy, a complete hyperscale data center campus built in direct physical adjacency to a nuclear facility, acquired outright. The deal was challenged almost immediately by federal energy regulators, who filed an emergency complaint over what they described as preferential and potentially unlawful grid access. Google's arrangement with Kairos Power targets 7 reactor deployments between 2030 and 2035, the first multi-plant small modular reactor fleet agreement in the history of commercial nuclear energy. Not one plant, a fleet, a repeating unit, a scalable template. 3 of the most powerful corporations in human history, 18 months, 1 asset class, and by the time the mainstream financial press had written its first analysis, the contracts were already signed. For over a century, power infrastructure was a public utility, regulated, shared, legally obligated to serve all users, homes, hospitals, schools, without preference or exclusion. That framework was not accidental. It was designed after a century of earlier infrastructure monopolization had produced the conditions for exactly the kind of crisis we are describing. That principle held for 100 years. It took 18 months to functionally dissolve it, not through legislation, not through public referendum, through privately signed bilateral corporate agreements that bypassed every oversight mechanism built to prevent this exact outcome. When a private corporation contracts for the exclusive output of a nuclear facility, the electricity that once flowed into the shared public grid stops flowing there. The municipal distribution system, the infrastructure every home, hospital, and school depends on competes for the remaining capacity. And in a market where AI data centers can outbid municipalities by several orders of magnitude, that competition is not a competition. In Northern Virginia, the corridor that processes approximately 70% of the world's internet traffic, grid strain from AI data center demand became severe enough that local utility authorities were forced to restart mothballed coal plants, not because there was an emergency, because the baseload was being rerouted. The community grid was competing with algorithms for the power that had always been theirs. When private capital controls public infrastructure, who do the lights belong to? When the Crane Clean Energy Center comes fully online, it will generate over 8 billion kilowatt hours of electricity annually. Every kilowatt will go to Microsoft Azure network. The surrounding public grid, the homes, the schools, the hospitals of central Pennsylvania receives zero allocation from this facility. Not a fraction, not a residual, zero. The physical infrastructure of a civilization being allocated by private contract, not by public vote, not by regulatory commission, by quarterly earnings targets, and bilateral agreements. The precedent being set is not hypothetical. The capacity under private contract is already surpassing the regulated public utility share, and the pipeline of future agreements is currently valued in excess of $2 trillion. The social contract that protected public access to this infrastructure for a century is not being renegotiated. It is being commercially superseded, grid by grid, plant by plant, contract by contract. The infrastructure of civilization is being allocated, and the allocation process is not governed by law, not reviewed by elected representatives, and not subject to public oversight. It is governed by the financial capacity of the counterparty, and in that competition, the public grid does not have the balance sheet to win. And tonight, the data center glows and the city waits. While the entire world argued over which AI model would win the chatbot wars, the institutional capital had already moved quietly into the most unglamorous sector on earth. History has a very clear pattern for movement exactly like this. In 1849, the men who died poor were the prospectors chasing the gold. The men who built generational wealth sold the miners their denim trousers and their shovels. Levi Strauss never touched a mine. Samuel Brennan cornered every pickaxe in San Francisco before the rush began. The AI revolution is running the exact same playbook. In 2020, uranium sat below $30 a pound. Dismissed, ignored. The financial press had moved on. By early 2024, it had surged past $100 a pound, its highest level in 16 years. This was not driven by geopolitical conflict, it was driven by nuclear power demand. Constellation Energy, the company that owns 3 Mile Island, watched its stock double within 12 months of signing with Microsoft. Not because it invented anything new, because it owned the infrastructure that artificial intelligence cannot function without. But the story extends even further. Electrical grid transformer manufacturers, the companies building the heavy copper and steel components that move power from nuclear plants into AI data centers, are facing 18-month waiting lists. Demand has outpaced their capacity to produce. They cannot build these components fast enough. The logistic companies shipping these components, invisible on any technology investment screen, are quietly compounding. These are not companies that appear in AI investment thesis. They are the pigs, they are the shovels. The hedge funds knew, the sovereign wealth funds knew, the energy analysts who understood infrastructure had been positioning quietly for 2 years. The data center received the press coverage, the nuclear plants received the contracts, the grid operators, the uranium miners, the transformer manufacturers, they received something quieter and considerably more durable, the returns. The picks and shovels play of the greatest technology revolution in human history was heading in plain sight. in the most unglamorous sector imaginable, and almost no one was covering it. This is where every thread converges. This is the paradigm effect. They built cathedrals that drink rivers and eat the grid, built for a single purpose: to keep the machines alive. One AI query, 10 times the electricity of a search. One training run, 500 homes 1 year. The cloud bleeds water. Every search, every inference, every model that learns to think. Somewhere, water is evaporating to keep the machine cool. Behind every breakthrough model, there are mines. There are processing facilities. There are megawatts that had to come from somewhere physical, from the earth. And the grid, the same grid your grandparents built to power their homes, is being asked to carry the weight of the entire intelligence revolution, all at once, with no room left to breathe. They sold you weightlessness. They sold you the cloud. They sold you intelligence at zero cost. Not in servers, not in software. The cost of intelligence is measured in gigawatts. Global data center electricity demand doubling by 2026, tripling by 2028, projected to exceed the combined current output of every nuclear plant in the United States before 2030. While the world debated which AI model was smarter, the institutional capital had already moved, quietly, deliberately, into the most unglamorous sector imaginable. Uranium spot prices up 60% in 2 years, not because of geopolitical conflict, because of a data center arms race. Natural gas pipelines are being routed directly to data center campuses, not to cities, not to neighborhoods, to campuses. The destination of the grid is changing. History is very clear on this pattern. During the California gold rush, the men who died poor were the ones mining. The men who built empires sold the picks and shovels. The AI gold rush is following the exact same script. The mines are running double shifts. The processing facility are at capacity. The uranium supply chain, previously one of the quietest commodity markets on earth, is being driven by a single force: the appetite of the machine. In Northern Virginia, the data center capital of the world, utility companies are now refusing new construction permits, not because the land is full, because the grid is full. Governments are rewriting energy policy in real time, not for electric vehicles, not for residential demand, for servers, for the intelligence layer that now runs beneath every modern economy. This is the grid you inherited, built over a century, paid for by public capital, designed from its first tower to last switch to serve you. It powers your hospitals, your farms, your home. And tonight, somewhere in Virginia, in Texas, in Arizona, a neighborhood is dimming, not from failure, from competition. Because the machine do not sleep, and the machine do not vote, and the machine do not pay the utility bill that arrives in your mailbox. Who decides which load gets shed first? Who does the grid belong to? Somewhere in the dark, a machine is still thinking, indifferent, relentless, infinite in its appetite. When you look at the earth at night, the lights you see are no longer only cities, they are minds. And minds need power the grid has never been asked to provide before. The trajectory does not plateau, there is no visible ceiling, and the world is only beginning to understand what that means. We are leaving the software era. We are entering the era of energy computation. The strategic resource has changed. The infrastructure of the energy computation era is already being built. The nuclear contracts are signed. The reactors are coming back online. The picks and shovels players made their moves years ago. The question now, the only question that remains, is whether you understand what they understood. The constraint on intelligence is no longer code. It's not data. It is not even talent. It is wire. It is steel. It is the fundamental physics of how much electricity exists on this planet and how fast we can generate more. The paradigm has shifted, not in some distant future, not in a prediction, in a signed contract, in a mine running double shifts, in a grid rewriting its own rules tonight. And the ones who understood it first, who signed the contracts, secured the uranium, build the reactors before anyone else. They do not merely own the intelligence, they own the power that makes intelligence possible. In the most consequential industrial land grabs since the Standard Oil era, the strategic resource has changed. The playbook has not. Until we shift our gaze from the brilliant, glowing screen and look down at the grid that powers it, we will remain passive observers in a world being rewired right beneath our feet. We investigate the invisible forces shaping our reality. We go beyond the headlines to connect the dots in business, technology, and global power that others miss. Subscribe for a new perspective. This is the Paradigm Effect.